Hello and welcome to another Big Data London webinar. Today's another one in our data transformation series, and we're talking to Papier, the online stationery company. So I'm Andy Steed, Content Director for Big Data London, and I'm joined today by Will Huntoon from Papier. Hi, Will.
Hey.
So these sessions are designed to be interactive. Please send in your questions at any point, and I'll endeavour to ask as many as I possibly can to Will after his presentation. By the question feature, you'll also see the attachments where you can find some resources to do with today's webinar. You can also see some of the webinars we've got coming up. We've got a great panel coming up next week on data-driven culture as well, and a link to Big Data London Virtual, which is coming up on the 23rd and 24th, where you can choose from over 100 sessions and build your own virtual conference. However, quite enough from me. I'd like to pass you over to our featured presenter today. Over to you, Will.
Great, thank you. Let me pull up my slides here. Great, so thank you everyone for having me. To start off, I'm a big fan of Big Data London. I went last year and I've been watching a lot of these webinar series, so I'm really excited to be here and share some of the things that we've been working on. To give you a quick overview of kind of the schedule and the agenda I had planned, I'm going to give an introduction to just who I am and who Papier is and what we do, and more importantly, why we consider ourselves a data-driven company. And then I'm going to go through a few different case studies of how we use our BI tools, particularly Fivetran and Looker, to solve some real business challenges and drive what we like to think of smarter decision-making using data. And then leave time at the end for questions, as Andy was talking about, and answer anything that you are curious about. Cool, so let's jump right in. Firstly, who I am. So like I said, my name's Will. I'm head of BI here at Papier. I moved to London 2 years ago. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts in the US. So if anyone's interested in talking about Boston sports teams after the presentation, I'm very happy to do that. And outside of work, I like to travel a lot. That's one of the big reasons I moved out here, was to try to broaden my horizons a little bit and see more of the world. And pre the pandemic, that was going pretty well. And now I've gotten very used to traveling around London and seeing things a lot more locally. And who's Papier? So we're an e-commerce startup that was founded in 2015. And our purpose as a company is to try to inspire people to create real and meaningful connections. And we think that there's 3 core ways that we do that. And most importantly is our design, which is at the heart of everything that we do. So if you go on our website and look at our products, you'll see we have a really talented design team that makes really beautiful products that our customers love. And even outside of our products, whether it's the design of our website or our office or even these PowerPoints, I think design's at a core of everything that we try to produce as a business. And then on top of that, we also care a lot about quality. So we think what we sell actually should be and feel as good as they look. So we take a lot of time to make sure we produce the finest products that we can for our customers. And then lastly is our personalization. So everything we sell on our website can be personalized, and this creates a really unique, customizable product for our customer that we think the combination of these things really resonate. So what do we actually sell? So we think of ourselves as a stationery company, and we produce a lot of notebooks and note cards and invitations as the core part of our business, but we sell most things to do with paper. So whether it's photo books or wall arts and calendars, all these things can be found on our site. And as I mentioned before, they're just really well-designed products that we think our customers love. So how does it actually work? Well, when you go onto our site and find a product you're interested in, you'll choose a design that you love, and then you can personalize it and make it your own. So if you're gifting it to a friend, you might be able to put their name on it, or if you're creating a cookbook with recipes or trying to make a new wellness journal, you can put anything you want on this to make it a unique product. And then once it's finalized, we'll produce this on demand and send it right to your door. In a lot of our products, another thing that we do to create these that we think is unique is we partner with a lot of different people in the creative industry. So whether it's different artists or fashion brands or even institutions, we take influences from all these different places to create a really curated collection of products that we think is really unique and special. And to just showcase a few examples of these, so Matilda Gold's an artist that we partner and collaborate with that is really known for their shell motifs or hand-woven patterns, and we translate these onto our products. And similarly, Mother of Pearl is a fashion designer that we update all of our styles each year with them so that we can have new designs that are the latest with the trends and translated straight to the products that you can buy and shop and use. Or similarly, House of Holland is another really popular print fashion designs that we like to put on our products, and we'll take these straight from the runway and onto some of our note cards or some of our notebooks. And I mentioned institutions, but Victoria Albert Museum is another one where their Owen Jones print collection inspired a lot of our designs that have been really popular and we think are a pretty special collection. So then getting over to the data and why we think of ourselves as a data-driven company. So all the decisions that we make as a business, we support with data, and it's culturally instilled in the whole, from top to bottom of our business. And just to pull some stats and numbers to showcase this, we have almost about 20 data sources that we use and update in our stack and offer to our business. And the majority of our company is using our BI software every week and pulling information, reports, and data to support what they're doing in their businesses. And our BI team collaborates with 14 different teams across our company, which is honestly most of them. So it just shows that data touches every single part of our company. And how do we actually do this? So we have a pretty typical cloud-based data infrastructure. So we pipeline a lot of our data sources with Fivetran into our data warehouse. And then we've started using dbt to handle some of our transformations that we then model all of our data into Looker, and that's how our company accesses it. Cool, so jumping into some of our case studies and what we actually do with our data and how we use it. The first one I picked was our weekly trading meeting to highlight. So what this actually is a weekly meeting where different department leaders come together so that they can drive sales, enhance the performance, and execute the strategy of our business. And what actually happens at this meeting is really twofold. The first one is we review performance from the last week. So we take data out of Looker and that's informing these actionable insights and key KPIs so that we can review what's going on in the business and make decisions off of that. And then from there, we actually take actions. So we pull different strategic levers in the business and invest money in certain categories or products, depending on what our strategy is or what we think are performing well, to really drive sales and maximize our performance. And the analogy that I like to think of with this, and that's why the picture I chose here is, pilots sitting in a plane trying to steer it, where there's a lot of dials and charts and information that's getting reported to them, and they're taking all of that in and figuring out how they want to steer and drive that plane to get to the right final destination. And that's what we're trying to do in this meeting. And so who's actually a part of this? We have a lot of core different departments that come together and meet every week to try to execute our strategy. So our marketing and operations teams, commercial and finance and merchandising, all of these get together every week and input into our strategy with our CEOs so that we can make the decisions that we need to try to steer the business and maximize our results. And I think the reason I'm highlighting this in particular is just to emphasize how important it is for this meeting that we have really good data that people believe in core metrics and a single source of truth, because if we didn't and everybody's coming with different data sets and different opinions, then we'd be spending our time thinking about the numbers and trying to figure out what's right, as opposed to the decisions that we can ultimately make and what we do about it. So how do we actually create this data pack? So we, as I mentioned before, use Fivetran and Looker as our pipeline and our BI tool. And then we actually link our reports through Google Sheets and Google Slides. And we do this just for very specific formatting reasons. And it's a lot easier to disseminate this data. So we can line up a lot of KPIs next to each other in tables that are from different data sources through Google Sheets and format different graphs in a way that we really specifically want. And then in Google Slides, we can update all of this content once with a click of a button. And we can also print out this data pack, or people can look at it virtually. It's really easy to share the single source of truth. And so what is the final result of this? I've pulled some screenshots to the right with anonymized data, but these are some examples of the visualizations that we have in here and that we review and present. But the final result is this weekly data pack that updates automatically with, like I said, the click of a button, and has all of the core KPIs of the business that each of these departments align on, so that we can work towards the same final goal as a business. And a few examples of some of the things that we look at are performance to budget and how we're tracking our marketing efficiency and key metrics there. How are we doing week on week and year on year? What commercial indicators do we care about in the next coming weeks? And how is our supply chain handling all of these decisions? And to give an example of what we actually do in this meeting and so what and why this matters is, I think it was showcased with COVID and the recent pandemic. So this obviously changed the world that we're working in, and our business was no exception. And prior to COVID happening and lockdown, we were primarily a wedding business and sold a lot of invitations and stationery and save the dates. And obviously social distancing didn't really help that market and encourage people to have as many weddings as they were before. And we used this trading pack and all these KPIs to strategically shift our business and really quickly, within weeks, out of this wedding category and into other core products. So what could have been a really problematic situation for us, we were really able to quickly pivot and adjust and come out of this okay and respond to changing demand in the market. Cool. The next example I have is our attribution model. So this has been a really big strategic focus for our team this year. And I think it makes sense to start with why we cared about it and why it's been such a focus. Our executive team came out with a strategic goal of improving our profitable growth and absolute contribution to the company. And since the majority of our sales and orders come through our paid marketing channels, it created a pretty obvious opportunity to work on our attribution model and really empower our marketing team with the best possible data we could to help maximize our money and where we're spending it. So we created a pretty typical attribution model using Fivetran and Looker. So we combine these three different data sources where we get marketing reports out of our platforms that we advertise on. We track on-site traffic where people are browsing around our website and where they came from specifically, what ads they clicked on and when to start their sessions. And then we link this to the sales that they drive so that we create a position-based attribution model to attribute what ads drove which orders. And when we built this, we actually ran through a challenge that from talking to a lot of other data people and a lot of other e-commerce companies, this is really common, but we had a huge issue with our social media and being able to attribute this. So the two core challenges in this is the first one's around view through. So if somebody's on their phone and sees our Instagram ad, they might go and search in Google for Papier and look at our website, and we had no idea that they actually looked at that ad because they never clicked on it. And even if they do click on that ad, they very rarely are shopping on their phones. As a lot of people know this, most people convert on different devices like laptops or computers. So it's really hard to track these people across different devices on our website. So how this actually showed up in our data and the numbers, well, we knew we were allocating about a quarter of our budget to social media, and we were seeing a lot of people come through on the website through this traffic. So we knew people were actually seeing these ads and clicking on them and arriving to the site, but our attribution model was really under-reporting with the value of these ads and the sessions and the orders that they would drive. So we thought this was a huge disparity from what we knew was reality because of these challenges. So what we did to try to combat this was created a new data source in our checkout survey. So when people are actually placing an order on our website, we ask them where they first heard about our company. And they can answer, as you can see in the picture, in tons of different options, but social media is one of them. And when we launched this, we actually, it's not compulsory, so people don't have to answer the survey, but we got a pretty strong response rate from our customers. About 3/4 of them were filling it out. And we saw really strong positive correlations with the data we were capturing from this. So as we were advertising more on social, we saw more responses for people from social media and vice versa. And so even though there's a lot of limitations to doing this where people might answer the wrong thing or just pick something at random or misremember, we felt pretty comfortable with this as a data source and using it for accurate information. And so we repipelined this data into our warehouse and actually matched it up to our attribution model in Looker to try to train this model to be smarter. So what we would say is, if somebody placed an order and filled out this checkout survey that they heard about us from social media, we would look at our touch points and see if we knew that they came from there. So if in our user journey we saw that they came from social media, we wouldn't change anything about our attribution. But if we looked back into our attribution and saw that we didn't know that they came from any kind of social platform, we would manually add this in as a new touch point from our checkout survey. So in this example, and I highlighted for view through, if someone saw our ad and actually searches on Google for our company, now we'll add in this touch point that says, oh no, they actually came from social media because they saw this social ad first before they did any of that. And the downside of this is we don't have the granular tracking as if they actually clicked on the ad. And so we don't know what ad they saw or at what time. But the benefit of this is we actually have more accurate global attribution. So we're not over attributing value in the channels where they actually saw a Facebook ad. And instead, even though we don't know the specific ad they saw, at least we're getting closer to the right channel that drove that order to begin with. And so what was the impact of this? We actually saw an immediate increase of over 2x in our attributed values to social. So adding this new data point into our model and updating our logic completely changed how we are attributing these and brought it closer to reality. We still don't think it's perfect, but we think it's a huge step in the right direction. And this is also just an average number. So different channels and different products where we more heavily invest in social, then we actually saw much better performance in there as well. And what did we do with that? And why does it matter? So using that data and from our attribution model, we justified as a marketing team increasing our budget in social media advertising. So from the results of this, they actually increased their budget in social media by 30%. And the outcome of that has been really beneficial for our company. So we've seen almost 60% increase in our return on the advertising spend and almost a 50% reduction in our acquisition costs. And I do think it's worth saying that these numbers aren't solely based off this one change in investing in social media. Our marketing team is constantly optimizing our ads and doing a lot of work, but this was a big driver and a change in how we strategically allocated that money. And I think we've seen really good results from it as a business. Cool. The last example I had was around our real-time reporting. And I'll caveat real-time with it. It's near real-time actionable reporting. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we at a core believe in our design-led personalized products, but these products actually take a lot of work for our design team and operations team and tech team to get live on site and ready for our customers to buy and deliver to your door in a really high quality. And one of the core challenges of this is actually the way that our operations teams create and manage these products on our website. So our website doesn't have a traditional structure where we have one product that has one unique SKU and a lot of things are saved there. It's actually really purposely designed to be more flexible than that, where we have different templates of types of products and different designs that our design team can repurpose and different variables and variants that make it much more complex and really efficient at creating these collaborations and lots of projects and repurposing artwork and things that are advantageous and unique to our company, but actually create a challenge for our operations team because there's a lot of different settings and a lot of different places in our website that need to be filled out and updated to get this working and live and in the right way. And there's a little bit of showmanship in those numbers that I might get a hard time about from our CTO, but the key principle is there's a lot of places that our operation team needs to update and maintain these products to get them live and working. And so there's a common theme to this, but we use Fivetran and Looker to solve this problem through our BI tool. So we actually pipeline these data models between, as I mentioned before, these different design templates and designs and variants, and we bring all that information in to Looker and update it every 5 minutes so that our operations team has almost up-to-date real-time reporting on how these things are live on our website. And they're able to use Looker and our BI tool to do all the traditional things like sort and filter these products and find exactly what they need and manage them in a more aggregated view as opposed to one by one and clicking on them on the website. But the other advantage to this that I think is really cool that I wanted to highlight is that using Looker, we can model the multi-dimensional relationship. So our operations team doesn't necessarily have to remember how templates relate to different designable types and how those make a product, because we built all of that into our data model in Looker. And we actually use Looker as a platform and link them directly to our website and where they need to go to fix things. So if they're looking at a certain product or they're looking at a certain template, they can, as you can see in the picture here, click on this and go directly to the website where they need to edit this. So it makes it a lot easier for them to sort through all of these products and find things that are wrong and errors and mistakes and fix them and go directly to where they need to resolve it. And we obviously are all human. We don't get it 100% right. So sometimes there are products on there that aren't working the way they should. And if somebody buys them, we actually use Looker in our customer support team to get ahead of these mistakes and errored orders. So if a customer buys something that isn't actually ready to be produced yet, or they shouldn't be able to, our Looker alerts our customer service team proactively, and they can reach out to our customer ahead of time and say, hey, we saw this happen, we're sorry, we're gonna fix it for you and get everything resolved. And then they can coordinate with our ops team and our tech team and try to root cause the issue a lot faster because we're able to use this platform really quickly as a tool. Cool, and then the last thing I'll just highlight before I kick it over to questions is, what we're focused on and working on next as a team and the data team. So our data strategy has 2 core pillars that we work on in our business. And the first one is we try to enhance our BI to scale. And so what that really means is, and what we focused on the first 2 years is really building out our core proof of concept with Looker and Fivetran data sets and KPIs so that we can give the business the right data they need to make the right decisions that they need to. But starting now and honestly into next year, we're really focused on making sure the technologies we use are ready and built to last. So I mentioned we are starting to use dbt for our transformations, and we think that that's going to help us really manage our tables and our logic a lot better and our warehouse utilization a lot more efficiently. And we also want to come up with good ways to explain and document stuff in our business that aren't really intuitive, like our attribution model, and really complex that people can understand and access really quickly without having to know everything that's sitting in someone's head. And then the other core pillar we have is to try to make smarter use of our data. And as I talked about it, the focus for this year was our attribution, and we've made a lot of changes. I highlighted one of them. But looking forward, the 2 things we're really focused on is using more advanced analytics. So one example of this that we did this year was we created a multilinear regression model to try to assess the performance of TV campaigns. And we wanted to build more models like that and more advanced statistics into our reporting to get a little bit smarter and sophisticated about how we report on things outside of just descriptive analytics. And then the second one is more of a pipe dream, but we want to try to utilize our data to automate decision making. So we're collecting a lot of this information about what our customers like and where they shop and what's to come. And we want to try to put that data to use. 2 good examples of this that we're talking about, they're not finalized, but one's around our inventory forecasting. So using what we know about sales to create more of a data-driven forecast. And the other one is around, we'd love to use personalizations from data that we're collecting across different parts of whether it's email or websites of what people care about to try to tailor experience to people and really show you the right product at the right time. Cool. So that was everything I had, and I think we can switch over to the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Will. So my first questions are going to be about the culture, because I think it was a really interesting stat that you said that 65% of your company in some way engage with your BI products there. I imagine most people watching this, the percentage won't be as high. It seems to come from that sort of weekly trading meeting. So how did that come about? It seems to be a central point for your company. How did that come about? How did all the departments decide that was the best idea to come together?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think from research, it's kind of a common meeting around e-commerce businesses. And I think it's off the back of our CEO and trying to pull the different departments together and keep a united front and make sure our website and all of the data and what we're showing our customers and what we're working on in the back end are all kind of focused on the same thing at the same time. And so that's where a lot of the priority came from. And then to support that with data, I think that just goes back to the culture that you were talking about, where we really believe that data is the best way to make good decisions. So we wanted to arm people with the right information and, not too much data, not too little data, but the right metrics at the right time so that we can make the right decisions in those meetings and change the business where we need to.
Yeah. And this one's a follow-up to that one. Out of interest, really, it's slightly outside of the data world. How were these meetings affected by people not being in the office? Presumably, they were physical meetings in the first instance. How have they translated with everybody kind of away from the office, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a good. I mean, one small example is just even we used to print out a lot of the slides and pull them together, and now we don't do that anymore. People are just tuning in, virtually online. But I think it's one benefit of kind of our cloud-based structure is it's pretty resilient to being remote. So everyone can still tune in on Zoom and have the slides open on their laptop, and we can update it really quickly. And we'll just flip through, and as we discuss things or if somebody's highlighting a particular point to their department and want to bring it to attention, then we can flip to that slide. But I think the biggest change is we've just saved a little bit of paper. And honestly, the challenge has been now some of us are coming back to work in the office. It's kind of difficult to have a hybrid of some people in the same room together and other people calling in. And we're still trying to figure that out. But at least I think a lot of the data and the reporting has stayed the same.
Perfect. And so in terms of the culture as well, I mean, how do you manage when you bring people on board to catch them up? Because I imagine most people won't have worked in a organization quite as data driven as yours, and so it must be a little bit different. Do you engage with new starters from other departments, for example?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think I might answer that in two ways. So I think one of the reasons we've been able to have such a quick adoption and grow really quickly is I think three big things guiding that. The first one is I think the leadership team has really bought into the idea of a data-driven company. So from the CEO, and the CTO also is very data savvy and a huge enabler of what our team does. And everybody's really bought into the culture. So that exists at the top level, and they're willing to invest in, the software and the technology and running the business that way. And then I think the second point is a lot of companies would probably say this, but the people at the company that are just fantastic here. So I work with really smart, really talented people that just makes my job so easy, where I'm just trying to get them information and really kind of get out of the way. Our team's really facilitating and enabling a lot of what they do, but our success is is really their success and speaks to just the talented people that we have here and that I'm lucky enough to work with. And then I think the third is around the technology. So our tools have been, they're really lean, they're really easy for us to manage with a smaller team and stand up a lot of things and that are really accurate and reliable, and we can build a lot really quickly. So I think we picked the right tools at the right time and the right level of support that has helped the culture. And then to answer your second question about onboarding, that is something we're still working on and learning the best way to do, but we do have a pretty lean, centralized team. So it would be hard to kind of meet with everybody and get them onboarded. So we've created a few introduction docs that teach people, here's Looker, here's how things work, here's some of our core KPIs, and there's a worksheet that goes along with that they can like answer some data questions and build reports for. And then we nominate what I call data superheroes within different teams and say, hey, this person knows a lot about it. And if someone's hired into marketing or is hired into ops, then we'll partner them with those data superheroes and say, hey, they're your first point of contact because they're going to know the best about their reports and what they use. And then if there's anything that can't be answered, then we're kind of a second layer of defense. So the combination of the introductory materials we create and kind of partnering people with advocates in the business has helped us get people caught up really quickly.
Cool. I'm going to take a couple from the audience now, which I'm going to reword very slightly. First one, you mentioned tools. So I'll do the first one regarding tools. So is there anything, any of the features of Fivetran and Looker, which came up a couple of times during your presentation, that stood out when you chose them? They've asked, obviously they're comparing it to another tool, so will not be fair, it wouldn't be fair to mention them, but positives about Fivetran and Looker that perhaps stood out when you were choosing them.
Yeah, that's a really good question. There are a few. So with Fivetran, it's a very good managed service, which makes it's a lot of the heavy lifting we don't have to do. We can just kind of plug in and upload data pretty seamlessly. So as I mentioned, it'd be really difficult to manage almost 20 data sources if I had to actively manage those every day. But Fivetran's great at just having these pre-built plugins that we can use, and it's also been really flexible. So as we've added more bespoke data sources from different servers or places, we can pretty quickly still pipeline it into our warehouse and use it in our BI tool. So we just thought Fivetran had a lot of the integrations that we use as our core business product, and from speaking with people, have a really high quality and level of service that we felt was a good value. And then for Looker specifically, we thought that this was a really good fit for what our business was trying to do. So there's some tools specifically that have a lot stronger visualizations or other things that it'd be a lot easier to upload an Excel file and make a visualized report from. But we really wanted to, our company really wanted to be able to self-serve and build their own reports and export things, and it's much more customizable as a platform. So we, as I showed in the example, we do 3 really different things, just 3 examples that showcase in using it as a tool where it's not just your traditional BI and descriptive analytics, but we can build our attribution model in Looker. We can use it as more of a platform and link it to our website. So we thought that it was much more dynamic and the right level of support, where our business didn't have to build their own data models and relationships and understand how different items fall into orders and not duplicate results, where we could do all of that as a BI team and just give our business the right data at the right time so that they can make good decisions.
Cool. And there's actually one come in that sort of follows up from it, which is an interesting question, I thought. Is that how much interest do the exec team take in the choices around? So I suppose the specific choices of who you specifically go with your tools. How much interest are they, or is it just a question of them just looking at the reports and saying, I like it, kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say it definitely varies. So I mentioned our CTO is very data savvy and has been a huge advocate and enabled a lot of what our team does. So I work really closely with him and thinking about these things. So I would say he's very interested and always excited to hear about the new things we're thinking about. And as I mentioned, we're starting to look at DBT. Like, he was very involved in the thought process of that and making sure it's the right decision, and is a great partner for me to help have somebody who's so knowledgeable about that to bounce ideas off of. And also he brings a lot of ideas to the table too. And then outside of him, I think a lot of the other strategic team around, kind of the COO, the CFO, and the CEO were more interested in kind of the results and just, can I get the right information that I want easily when I want it? So I think that they're really excited about it now, and even to the point where I get Slack messages from our CFO even a few weeks ago. He's giving me ideas about how to change our color scheme to make it better for visualizations and things like that. So I think at this point, people are really excited about it and bought in, but yeah, so they're just kind of interested in the outcomes and being able to have the right data at the right time.
Perfect. Yeah. And the other ones about your sector, which has come in. I'll ask it a slightly different way. I mean, do you think that the sort of model and the way that you do things could be easily replicated by someone who's watching, who doesn't work for an e-commerce business? He say the phrase they've used is a more traditional bricks and mortar business. So yes, perhaps like a retail bank or something like that, something that's perhaps got steeped in more history. Do you think that your model could be sort of transferred there?
I definitely think so. I haven't had as much experience of trying to set all of this up for more legacy features and know kind of where different data lives and sources. I definitely think it might be a slower and more difficult setup for a brick and mortar that has data in offline servers or in much different places that it's harder to consolidate into one warehouse. So as I mentioned, our CTO is very data literate and friendly, so it was pretty easy for us to set up our server and just pipeline everything into our reporting database along with the other platforms. So I think a lot of the model and the infrastructure could be used, and I know a lot of brick and mortar retailers still use Salesforce as a CRM platform that you could take data from pretty easily. But I think it would have to depend on just where it lives and how easily you can get it from one place into your reporting warehouse.
Cool. And I suppose my next question is going to be more about kind of challenges, maybe some of the kind of barriers rather than the good positive stuff. I mean, what sort of barriers have you faced with this kind of thing? And you must have got over them to get to where you got to. So and how did you get over those barriers? How did you get around them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's a few. One that we've been trying to figure out a lot more recently is more bespoke data sources. So it was really easy to set up integrations that Fivetran supports, whether it's Google or Facebook or some of these platforms that a lot of people are getting data from, and they offer these reports and data sets as a service. And more recently, we've been expanding different platforms that we market on and partners and channels, and it's been a lot harder to kind of get things stood up in the pipeline working and into our data warehouse. I think on the flip side, that speaks to the ease at which once we get the data, we can integrate it into Looker, and kind of speaks to the power of that tool where we can transform it and format and report on it in a similar structure. But that's been a big challenge as we're kind of moving past the initial stand up and into more challenging sources that are less supported. And I'd say another one has not necessarily a challenge we've hit too much yet, but we're trying to continue to stay ahead of is making sure that we don't build too much too fast and lose quality and have to repurpose work or have to redefine metrics. So we actually spend a fair amount of time reinvesting in our core metrics, and we recently rebuilt all of our financial metrics to what we consider revenue aligned closer to the finance department in the business, and what we think of as really an acquisition. Or I mentioned our trading material. Once a year, we update that and reduce slides that just tend to grow in content. But I'd say we actively spend as much time revisiting our material and taking stuff away that's not used, so that we don't build this thing that just has too much information and is unusable from a user in our company.
Awesome. And the last question I was going to ask you, before I obviously ask you about some Boston sports, because I think it's important we cover that too. Is about your structure, the data team at Papier. So you mentioned the CTO, obviously. Do you sit within that function? Do you have a technical function or a business function? Your own department, that kind of thing, or do you just align yourself to whichever department you're helping at any given time? I mean, how do you how and where do you sit in the business?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So our BI team, we think of as being a centralized team that works cross-functionally with each department. So as I said in one of those slides, we have 14 different teams that we try to support. In terms of where we sit within finance and the CFO specifically. So I report into him, and we see our team really as collaborators and enablers. So I meet really cross-functionally with department leads and talk about, what's their agenda, what's their roadmap, make sure that we're aligned so that we can build data alongside so that they have the information they need to judge how well things are going or not. And that's similar with the tech team as well. They're a key part of how we collaborate and make that a success. So yeah, we specifically sit within the finance team, and we try to work really cross-functionally with most of the company.
Perfect. So I will. Unfortunately, it's not a specialist subject of mine, Will. But is it the Celtics, Boston Celtics? Am I right? Is it going to be a good year for the Boston Celtics this year? Yes. Do you think you're predicting a good year for them? It has been already. Sorry, that's how little I know about it.
No, it's no problem at all. I'm just excited to talk. But yeah, it's been a great year. They're in the playoffs right now against the Raptors, but they are a contender for the finals. So hopefully they might be able to win the whole thing.
Perfect. Well, fingers crossed for the Boston Celtics. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today, Will. We've had some nice comments of how much everybody's enjoyed it already. I'm sure we'll get more as we go into demand. If there's anything that anybody wants to go over again, this session will be available on demand almost instantly once we hit the stop button. So if there's any slides you want to go through, you can do that straight away afterwards. But from me and from Will, it's goodbye for now. So thanks everybody and goodbye. Bye, Will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.